So tell everybody your name and where you're from, and then we'll go from there.
Hi. Well, I am Deanna Seifert. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. Our little boy, Jackson, he's going to be 18 months at the end of the month, and I can't believe how fast it's gone. So he is our one and only. We went into parenthood thinking we would just have one, and that has continued to be reaffirmed.
Yeah.
So, I feel like our story is a little bit different from a lot of people's. So, Jackson, we actually didn't know that he had it. It was sort of kind of a fluke that we found it. So, when I first was pregnant, our OB let us know that we could get some like early genetic testing done. And my husband is adopted, so we definitely wanted to have that, just knowing that there was a piece of like medical history that we didn't have. So that came back, everything was fine. But I was sort of kind of flirting with preeclampsia my whole pregnancy. So we saw the perinatalist a lot. And the upside of that was we got lots and lots of ultrasounds. So every time I went, I got to see him. And but never once did they say anything about any concerns they had about him. He was only ever growing like, I think the most was 4 days ahead. So it wasn't like my whole pregnancy they were concerned that he was going to be a big baby or anything like that. So when I was at 36 weeks, I went in for my regular perinatal appointment, and my fluid levels were kind of low. So they were like, oh, we're just going to send you next door to the hospital for observation. And it was like, okay, that's fine. At my 35 and a half week appointment, like I hadn't been dilated, a face, nothing. Like he was like in there. He hadn't even dropped yet. So we were like, okay, good. Yay. So here I am thinking, I remember it was a Tuesday, and I'm like, okay, this is annoying. But so we go over there, and they hook up all the monitors to us. And then when the doctor was like, well, we're just going to check you just to see if anything's progressed. And I was already at 2 centimeters. So they're like, you're having a baby today.
Oh my gosh.
And we were like, oh, and I just kept telling everybody, like, I have to go to work. But, so then, like, everything, I mean, pretty, I don't know, I have nothing to compare it to, but seemed like pretty typical, like, first baby, labor. It was about 18 hours. And part of the problem with the preeclampsia is that they couldn't get my blood pressure under control. So I was on magnesium the whole time, and they let us know that, like, hey, when he's born, he might be kind of sluggish, that the magnesium will cause that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they couldn't get it under control, and like my blood pressure sort of bottomed out at like 90/60 at one point. And so they kept throwing around C-section, but they never, I mean, that ended up not at all being not being a thing. So finally, he was born, and he was certainly like sluggish when he was born. But he was 8 pounds, 11 ounces, 21 inches long. And even then they still were not like, I mean, I was just thankful I hadn't taken him to full term if at 36 weeks he was 8 pounds.
Oh my God.
So he was definitely sluggish, but they sort of got him, they, rubbed him down, and he was crying and everything. But when they took his blood sugar, it was so low that it wouldn't even register. Oh. So at that point, they called the NICU team down, and they came down, and I feel like there was just a million people in that room, and they were sort of feeding him, trying to get it to at least register. Mm-hmm. And like at that point, my blood pressure had skyrocketed to like 200 over something. And so it was like, my poor husband was like, do I stay with my wife? Do I go with Jackson? And so at that point, they told us that they would take him to the NICU. They finally got a blood sugar of 9, and they were going to take him to the NICU. And because Oh my gosh. And because I had to be on the magnesium, I had to stay in labor and delivery for 24 hours. So I was like in and out of it. My poor husband was like back and forth, back and forth. But when we talked to the first NICU doctor, he was very, he was very optimistic. He was sort of like, we're hoping 24, 48 hours, like he'll go home when you go home. So then his blood sugars were great. They continued to stay high, but he wasn't maintaining the eating how they wanted him to. So he ended up being in the NICU for 6 days. But they really told us like that the blood sugar, the newborn hypoglycemia, all of that would sort of correct itself. Mm-hmm. He did have the umbilical hernia. Again, they told us it'll just correct itself. There's nothing you need to worry about. So I was like, okay, well, so we brought him home, and within the first month, we had 2 emergency room visits because he had trouble keeping food down. And it was sort of like it was a back and forth because he would eat. He was hungry all the time. Right. So he was eating all the time. And I even remember one of the emergency room doctors made a comment like, that's a lot. He's eating a lot in each feeding. And I was sort of like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, we've tried to stop at what they recommend, and he loses his mind. So I was like, if it's between feeding him too much and getting some sleep, like, I'm going to opt for the sleep. Yeah. But so he would eat a whole bunch, but then all of it would come back up. It wasn't just spit up. It was that he would like regurgitate all of it back up. And so we had swallow tests done and all kinds of stuff. And they ultimately determined that he had the milk and soy protein intolerance. So we went on the special formula. And even at that time, I do remember when they did the swallow test, they also did an ultrasound of his esophagus and just the opening part of his stomach. And like no issues. The Nutramigen seemed to solve the problem. So, we just kind of went on our merry way. But then, so when he was about 5 months old, I had started to notice that one of his feet looked different. Like they didn't look the same. Like his one foot was just a little bit longer and sort of like meatier. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I won't, like, whatever, I'll talk to the doctor about it. Well, then daycare pointed out that his whole left leg was actually bigger than his right leg. So I was kind of like, okay, well, so we talked to the doctor at the 6-month appointment, and, right away he agreed that he could see the difference. So they ordered like a lower extremity X-ray and CT scans. And at that time, the difference, I think, was like a little over 0.5 centimeter. I mean, it really wasn't, it wasn't a whole lot that they were concerned about. But so in the meantime, between seeing the doctor and getting those results, I had like been furiously like crazy researching, and I had stumbled across right, exactly. So I stumbled across like the hemihyperplasia, and I was like, okay, well, it's clear he has that. Like I was like, I don't even need a diagnosis. Like it's more than clear that he has that. But then that led me to a website that talked about the Beckwith Wiedemann, and I'm like going through all these symptoms. I'm like, yeah, he has all of these things. And so when we went back to the doctor, his pediatrician's sister actually works at the Mayo Clinic. And so he had been kind of consulting with her. And as soon as she heard like all of his symptoms, she right away told him what she thought it was. And so, the great thing about his pediatrician at the time was he was very upfront with us that this isn't something that he'd ever treated before. Mm-hmm. So he was definitely like, whatever is recommended, we're just gonna do it. And so we then so we really struggled to get in with genetics because so it was it was July of last year, that, you know, we were pretty sure that he had it.
Mhm.
And then, like our genetics center here, is through the med center. And so they did not have any appointments until December.
Oh.
And I just thought, I don't want to wait this. I mean, the more and more I read about this, I thought, we can't wait that long.
No.
And the really great thing, like I said, his pediatrician was more than happy to put in the order for the ultrasounds and the blood work, regardless if we had a diagnosis or not.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we didn't ever really have to really fight with him on that, which was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
But we really had to be careful because insurance was really like, you know, we don't have a diagnosis and this is a lot of tests. And so they would not let us, like, we literally had to count out the days from when he had it, and it could not be more than 12 weeks. It couldn't be like 11 weeks and 5 days or something. So thankfully, his nursing staff was amazing, and they ended up getting us into a cancellation spot about 4 weeks after he had his first round of testing. Mm-hmm. And I remember we met with 2 genetic counselors and the genetic doctor. And when they came in, and they were so, so nice, and they were just like, well, tell us a little bit about why you're here. And I just lost it because I felt like all of this information, we'd been on information overload. And of course, when you're online, mostly what you're finding is sort of the scary stuff, or lots of really medical jargon heavy. And I mean, I'm somebody who, as part of my job, I'm used to reading medical records. So the fact that I couldn't read these made me really nervous. But so they, again, right away, they're like, we're happy to give him, or like, he has the clinical diagnosis. Mm-hmm. But I asked them, I said, you know, when he was born, we saw so many doctors and so many nurses in those first 6 days. And then at the hospital visits, I was like, why did nobody say anything about this? You know, why was it that we had to notice something? And the one thing that he does not have is he does not have the enlarged tongue. And so they told us that is really the indicator for so many kids. And because it's so rare and it's so different in everybody, that it's really not one that they sort of go to check. So yeah, that was really, I think that was the part that I struggled with the most, was like, what am I paying all these doctors for?
Right.
And nobody knew what was wrong with my kid, you know? And so meanwhile, a doctor he's never even met hears his symptoms and right away knew what was going on. So
what if he wasn't your first? Like, I mean, this is horrible, but when you get to like your second, third, fourth, whatever, like, you don't notice stuff that often because you're like totally preoccupied with the other kids.
Right.
So you might not have noticed that little difference in his feet right away. Like,
exactly.
This is a big deal.
Well, and I'm such a hypochondriac for myself that there were certainly people who were like, are you sure there's a difference? Like,
wow. It was
are you sure you're just not looking for something? And I'm like, yeah. And I mean, it was one of those things where I mean, now I think it's more it's more obvious, the difference. But I think at first, if you weren't looking for it, it was easy to especially people who didn't see him all day long like I did. So he did. So we've been consistently getting his scans for a year. And then we had to fight with insurance again to get the actual testing to confirm it. And it was like, you don't want us to have these tests without a diagnosis, but now you don't want to pay for us to get a diagnosis. So that was very frustrating. And I remember telling my husband, you know, I work in insurance, so I even knew sort of like what to say to try to grease the wheels and everything. And still I was having trouble. So that was really frustrating. But So now, well, so then when we got his results back, he does have I think it's the UPD version. So we, and I had even talked to his doctor if he needed, the testing more than the 12 weeks because of that. And they said, no, that the 12 weeks was good. The only other thing that he does have a lift for his right shoe. It's only a 0.5 centimeter lift, but they did. So we actually sort of inadvertently got hooked up with an early intervention program that's through our school district. And I would really, really encourage anybody that if you haven't really talked to your school district, that there might be some programs out there, because he automatically qualified based on his diagnosis, and they offer physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, all of that for free until he's 3 years old. And so they have just been so wonderful, because they will go, she goes out about every 5 to 6 weeks, and she does it right at daycare. So we don't have to take time out from work. We don't have to take him anywhere. And she just really makes sure that he's not, that he's hitting all his milestones, that we're not seeing any deficits anywhere. But so they were actually the one to notice that when he was standing, that his one leg was starting to bow, to compensate for the length. So we put the shoe lift in, and that has really, really worked some really amazing wonders. And he does, for a kid with 2 different length legs, he has like amazing balance, and nothing slows him down. It's kind of amazing, like how much they just like, as soon as he started walking, he was like, I got this. And he's just running. Yep. Yes. And I swear, like, the more he falls down, the more he just wants to run. So, so yeah, that was really that was kind of our big intro into parenthood. We did, probably a little before he was a year old, I wanted to make sure, I was curious if there were any pediatricians that had treated this before. And so we reached out to our children's hospital, and they were able to locate 3 doctors in the area, which I was really surprised. We live in a pretty big city. So I was really surprised that, we were sort of limited to the 3 doctors. And we tried to stay in the practice that we had been in. And those doctors, they were very upfront with us. They said, I think 2 of them had seen a case of it like 15 plus years ago in their residency. So they're like, we know what you're talking about, but we've never actually treated a kid with it. Wow. So we did find a really great pediatrician who she has experience treating BWS kids with hyperhemiplegia, all that kind of stuff. We're really fortunate that we are here in town where the children's hospital is, because I know a lot of parents have to travel to where their hospital is. So his orthopedist is actually a doctor who has treated it before as well. So like his care team is really, really on top of it. I'm very, very thankful for them.
I have a question about your orthopedic doctor for him. Yeah. Because I took Owen to see his leg does the same bow thing that you're talking about. And his length difference is like close to 1 inch. It's pretty big.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And when I took him to the orthopedic doctor here, he was like, no big deal. He's fine. And I was like, oh, really? And I was like, he's like, yeah, he's getting around fine. Sometimes when you put a lift in, it makes him clumsier. And I was just like, oh. So I was a little like, should I push the lift thing? Because I like his leg bows, his bigger leg.
Yeah. I was really surprised. So when we talked to her, he just had an appointment with her like not even 2 weeks ago. Okay. And she was very, we were sort of under the impression like he needs to always be in shoes with the lift. Sort of based on our conversation with the physical therapist that he had seen. And the orthopedist was like, nah, like if he wants to go barefoot, let him go barefoot. If he wants to wear sandals, because her whole thing was she didn't want him to, she was like, I want them to be exposed to different like surfaces and different, ways to getting around. So I mean, like you, I was kind of surprised that she wasn't like, okay, good, always have the lift.
Okay. That makes
so, and yeah, and then she told us that, so he only sees her once every 6 months, as just make sure everything's going okay. And then they've told us that when he's 3, they'll start to take like a series of x-rays over like between when he's 3 and 4, and then they can actually like project out how much they think like the final discrepancy would be, like once he's completely grown.
Wow, interesting.
And so that then we could, if they think it's going to be really, or if they think it's going to be a lot, there's some things that we could do now to hopefully help with that. But yeah, so, I mean, maybe even talk to them about that, because that was definitely something that they talked to us early on about is, different tests and measurements that they can take that sort of predict what like his final height would be, what his final, what that leg discrepancy would be. And I know his pediatrician had done something sort of similar, and they were expecting him to be over 6 feet, which, I mean, both my husband and I are taller than average, but certainly not over 6 feet. But both my dad and my brother are over 6 feet, so it wouldn't be,
I can't wait to see how tall Owen's going to be. I would love to hear like an estimate, because he's so, like today I had him at the pool, and these moms were like, "Oh, he's so cute. How old is he?" And I was like, "Oh, he's 18 months old." And they were like, "What?" The first thing they said was, "Oh my God, he's so tall." I'm like, "Yeah, he's really tall."
It's so funny because like when we buy clothes for him, it's so hard because he's got this little teeny tiny waist, but he has like the BWS belly. Yeah. So all the shirts are too short if I buy the ones that actually fit. So I usually have to buy short, like I feel like pants we buy a lot of because especially some of his like lighter fabric ones, he looks so, I feel so bad. He looks so silly because the one just looks like a sausage, like encased in something, and the other one is so loose. So I've definitely found that like the jeans that you can cinch are my best friend, because then I can get them bigger so that they're long enough for him.
Right.
And finding shirts that are long enough for him as well, that he's also not swimming in, is a fun
without making them look ridiculous.
Right, exactly. He has, for summer, he has a pair of sandals, and I had to go up in size so that the sandal was not even the length for the bigger foot, but it's because that bigger foot is so meaty, just to like get it in there.
Yep.
And that other shoe, it looks so silly on him because you can see the difference. At least in his tennis shoes, you can't see the difference.
Right.
But that sandal, it looks so silly.
I know. So does I found sandals for Owen that are Velcro. Like they Velcro, they Velcro on the back, like behind the heel, across both tops. So like it allows for the width. Yes. But his length is bigger too. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm like, oh my gosh, poor kid. I'm like, his feet look ridiculous.
Yep.
So funny.
But it certainly does not slow them down. So
does he have the typical like intense, well, not intense, but like feisty, like I am going to do what I'm going to do?
Yes.
So funny.
He's so stubborn, and he's so like, God. And I was so glad when you mentioned in your post, gosh, probably months ago, about that Owen eats all the time, because I thought Jackson wants to eat all the time. And so I'm always worried that when we take him into the doctor, that he's going to, just be like off this, but like he's not. I mean, he's eaten so much, but he's,
because their metabolism is so fast. Like, and I noticed it more when he wasn't eating solids and he was just eating milk, and he would get up all the time. Like I would just hear it go in his belly, and I was like, his belly is legit empty, and I just fed him an 8-ounce bottle 3 hours ago. Like, what in the world?
I don't know that I'll ever forget that first emergency room doctor. She was like, because he was probably right around 4 weeks old, and he was drinking 3 ounces. And she was like, that's way too much for a baby his age. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Like, because here she was thinking that the reason he was throwing up is because we were overfeeding him.
Right.
And it's like, I will happily let you see what happens if we stop at 1 ounce or 2 ounces.
It's not worth it.
It's really, really not. And especially that first time that it happened, we were so concerned. I remember it happened late at night, and so we called the pediatrician's like on-call line. And at the time, he told us that he really thought we were at the point that we needed a swallow test. And I was so worried about him aspirating at night.
Yeah.
And so he had told us, it was probably 11 o'clock at night, and he told us, well, don't feed him until he has the swallow test. So you can go to the emergency room now or wait to come into the office tomorrow morning when we open at 8. And I thought, there is no way he will go that long with nothing to eat. No. I mean, as it was, the emergency room was terrible because I think we got there about 11:30, and by the time he was seen, they did the test, they did the ultrasound. It was close to 1:30, 2 o'clock before he could eat. And he was just so, and like, I knew it was that he wanted to eat.
Yep.
So yeah, it just, but yeah,
Owen,
no, he's always,
Owen is his
always just snacking.
Hungry. I always have to have snacks. Like, I need to plan ahead. And like, I am always hungry all the time, but not like that. So like, a lot of times I'll have like snacks in my bag or whatever. But, like, I never have enough snacks. Like, no matter what I plan, it's just never enough. I'm like, what?
Yep.
Like, I'll go to the pool, and he brings the lunchbox, like, over to me. And I'm like, oh, and you literally, I don't have anything left. And he gets all mad. I'm like, I don't have anything left for you. You ate it all.
Yep. I remember we would bring snacks when we would go out to, like, eat with family or whatnot, and he would have it before the food came. And my dad was always like, he's going to be full. Why'd you order him food? I'm like, he will still. So he'll have the snacks, and then he'll eat what we fed him. So yeah, no, he does it. I don't know that he can get full.
Yeah, I don't think they can. I really don't. Does he fight like really hard if he ever gets any testing, or if he ever gets like his ultrasounds and stuff like that? Like, Owen, we have to like hold him down, train him.
So strong. All things can. Oh my God, he's incredibly strong. Even when we went to, when we were at the orthopedist a couple weeks ago, the tech who came in first to like try to measure him, even she commented, she's like, he is so strong. I'm like, he's like physically strong, and he's so strong-willed that that combination. Generally, I feel like he's pretty tolerant, all things considered, because he sees doctors all the time. Yeah. And the ultrasounds, we do okay until they have to, so I'm assuming they do the same thing. Like, they do his front first, but then he has to like flip over. Yeah. And that's the point that like, he's like, no, I'm done, because when I want to crawl or I want to get up, I turn over, and now it's time to go. So that's the hardest part. And then, like, we always do the blood work second, because I'm like, if we do that first, like, there's no way we're getting that ultrasound done. No. And, we try to get the earliest appointments that we can, because they're like, oh, we can't eat for 6 hours. I'm like, are you kidding me? So we always
do that, because that's a new thing that they said they don't have to Dr. Kalish at CHOP, the research team, was like, they don't have to.
Really?
Yeah, I wanted to tell you that, because I was like, okay, that's going to make the ultrasounds a world of difference. Like, he'll be a totally different child. And they said just don't, like, feed them like in the waiting room, like before you're going.
Oh yeah.
But like, we're like 40 minutes or so from the hospital, so she was like, you can certainly feed him when he gets up and then bring him. But she was like, they don't have to be NPO anymore. I was like, thank you, Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, because what we've been doing is we would get the appointment at 7:15. That's usually the earliest appointment we could get. And then whatever 6 hours prior to that is, we would set an alarm, make a bottle, because it's the middle of the night. It's usually like whatever, 1:15 in the morning. And so we would set an alarm for us, get him up, feed him, hope that he'll go back to sleep or finish the whole bottle.
Yeah.
And then when he gets up, go like try to get him to sleep until right before we have to leave, which never happens. But yeah, definitely the blood draws are, I mean, I'm like laying across him trying to like get him to lay down, and the last couple have been pretty bad. Like the last 2 times ago, like she couldn't get a vein and she kept just like she didn't take the needle out. She's like, I don't want to stick him again. I'm like, I understand, but you're digging around in his poor arm. And then the last time she didn't take enough.
Oh my God.
And then so she didn't take enough blood, and then we took the tourniquet off, everything. So then she got the rest of it by pricking his finger and just squeeze. It was terrible. He was done. He was so done. And of course I'm trying to not cry because he's crying, and also not take the technician's head off. What are you doing?
Yeah, I know. You have to try and stifle the mama bear at the same time as controlling your 18-month-old that's acting like they're 5. Owen hits now, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a really big problem. He hit his speech therapist so hard the other day. She was half paying attention, and she was stunned for a good minute.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But when he hits, it's really hard.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you don't understand.
It's they don't know their own strength.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem. I'm like, oh my God, how do I teach him? Because half the time I'm like, he's trying to play, but then when he's mad, that's the thing with the blood draws now. If I don't have a good hold on him and have someone else helping me, and he gets a hand free, he'll hit them. Slap him in the face.
Yep, and he's so strong. I'm worried one of these days he's gonna get away from me and fall off the exam table. But yeah, no, when he doesn't want to do something, it's not even worth the fight.
I know.
Most of the time.
And I don't know how he is, but if I tell Owen no, it's almost better if I try and redirect him rather than tell him no. Because if I tell him no, he's gonna do it and a million more times just because I told him no. I'm like, this is the will of a teenager in an 18-month-old body. What is happening?
I took a video for my husband the other day. So Jackson has one of these plastic bats, and he was hitting the TV with it. And so I was like, Jackson, no. And he turns around and he pointed at me the same way that I did to him. And he goes, no, no. And then went right back to doing it. And so I'm trying to not laugh. And also but I feel the same way. We have to redirect because no is just funny to him, especially now that he can say it. Yeah. So, yeah.
And we have Michael Jr. is 4.5, and I'm very okay, if you guys get into it, just figure it out, because otherwise it's going to be mom, 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 every 5 seconds. So the one time I was Michael was yelling about something, and he's like, Owen took my toy or whatever. And I was like, Michael, you're 4.5. You're 3 years older than him. Figure it out. And he's like, I can't, Mom. He's unstoppable. I can't do it. I'm like, all right, I can't even argue with him because, I mean... I felt so bad. I'm like, all right, buddy, I'll help you because I know you really can't get it from him.
Yeah. One day so he goes to daycare, and the teachers at daycare they just love him and adore him. And there's a toy there that's it's a Sesame Street vacuum where one side is Elmo and one side is Cookie Monster. And one day when I dropped him off, another kid was playing with it. And so he went over there and just took it. And I'm trying to be like, Jackson, no, don't do that. And the teachers are dying laughing. So I'm like, okay, well, there's some kind of joke going on here. Thing. They're like, yeah, so that's Jackson's toy. They're like, all the kids sort of know that that's Jackson's toy, and if he wants to play with it. And I'm just like, you're not helping me
oh my God.
by letting him have his own toys at daycare.
Oh my gosh, that is so
So
funny.
yeah.
Does he, I don't remember if you saw my picture of Owen overheating. Does he overheat?
He does. And I never really thought about that until you had, you'd posted something about that. And I had always just assumed that he sort of ran warm. Both my husband and I tend to run a little warm. But yeah, it does not take much for him to just be, I mean, he wakes up from naps sometimes and I swear he's just drenched. He's not even doing anything. But yeah, we really try to, like, when we're outside, we try to keep a hat on him and that does nothing. But yeah, he does. He gets overheated really easily and it's so cute because like then the curls comes out.
Yeah. Does he get more aggravated? Because I noticed with Owen, like once he's overheated and hot, it's like a flip of a switch. Like the other day we were outside and he wanted to be outside, but he was so hot. He was like, he didn't even know what to do with himself. He was like freaking out.
Yep.
And I was like, Owen, like, we'll just let me put water on you. We'll go inside or whatever. And then as soon as he was cooled down, his whole demeanor changed. I'm like, oh my God.
Yep.
Pissed off because he's so hot.
When we are outside, like we try, especially in the summertime, because it's been so hot, like we try to be outside in like, and we go to the pool. Yeah. Because then we know that he can cool down, and he's a total water baby. So
is Owen. That's so funny. He loves the water.
Yeah, he just loves water.
So he's never had any issues with breathing or anything like that?
Nope. And then when they did the he did go to the dentist. That was interesting. But we even had the dentist check to make sure that he wasn't seeing any difference, and he was, he noticed that like maybe the one side was slightly bigger, but never, just because everything on the left side of him is a little bit bigger, but it's mostly pronounced in his leg and his foot. But no, they weren't worried about any breathing issues or anything like that. So
it's good to hear like how subtle his signs were. I mean, like it's not good in a way, but it's good for other people to hear it, because I said to my husband, like if Owen was born the way he was born, but without his tongue, I really don't think he would have been diagnosed as quick. Because I mean, like he had very similar things that Jackson had, but the tongue was like a dead giveaway, pretty much. Right. Like that kind of made them think about it. But I mean, most people think, oh, they don't have a tongue, then they don't have it. And like, no, a lot of them have it and they don't have the tongue. There are plenty of them that don't have that area affected, which makes sense because it doesn't affect every area of the body. So why does it have to affect the tongue? Right. So
and that was, I mean, even when I asked them and I said, why was this missed? And they, and they did, and like once they said this, I'm like, okay, well that makes sense that, you can't possibly test for every single, every single thing. But yeah, so when we did the genetic testing, it was because we even asked them, we said, well, we had the genetic testing done, like, and they told us like that just isn't one of the things that gets, that is included in that test.
They don't even test for that when they genetic test when you're pregnant. See, because I had the first round of genetic testing done, and then there's like a second part to it, and there was like an insurance issue, and they were going to try and charge me all this major money, and I was like, I'm not going to pay all this money, because for me, like, it's not going to matter what it comes back with, and it will. If he does have something, it's almost going to stress me out. So I always just assumed it was because I didn't do it that we didn't know. But I never realized they don't even test for it.
Yeah, we specifically asked because we said, we got this testing done and everything came back clear. And they told us that, that wasn't included in that early testing. And then because like, even though we'd had all those like far more ultrasounds than maybe, like the normal pregnancy, because I even said then, like, why didn't any of this sort of come up? And they said he didn't show any signs. Like I said, like the most he was maybe growing like 4 days ahead. But I did remember when, like right after he was born, before my husband cut the umbilical cord, the doctor made a comment that the umbilical cord was really big.
Yeah.
And that, like, clearly he had been, like, needing lots of nutrients and stuff. And and it was funny because, you know, we had all of these, well, not funny, but, you know, you had all of these things sort of happen. And it wasn't until, like, I stumbled across that one website that literally laid all of that out. And it was like, wow. So all of these seemingly random things, you know, put together, that's how we got the diagnosis. And one of the genetic counselors that we talked to said that one of the other reasons that it, you know, if we hadn't noticed the leg and the foot to sort of start the ball rolling, he's like, a lot of the other symptoms that you get, you could have just by themselves. So like you could have a newborn be large at birth, or you could have like newborn hypoglycemia, you could have umbilical hernias. So that each of those things by themselves didn't mean anything, and that you could have them and not have a BWS baby. So that he's like, that makes it even harder to diagnose.
That's interesting, because I really feel like they should test for that in the genetic testing, just strictly because of the cancer risk that's involved for the kids.
Exactly.
Like you just think about like a genetic thing that they're testing for, if that's a risk. Cancer is like a big deal, and with how big they grow, like quickly they grow, it grows so much quicker in them. So like,
you want to say hi?
Oh yeah, put him on.
Come here, bud. Hi.
Oh, I always love when the kids come on. It's my favorite.
Uh-oh.
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 Hi.
You say hi? You say hi? You say hi?
Hi, buddy. Oh, you're so cute. Oh my goodness, you're so cute.
You say bye? Bye? You blow kisses?
Oh my gosh, he even has like Owen's hands are so big.
Yes.
He has like big chunky hands like Owen.
You go night night? You go night night?
Oh, he's so cute. Oh my gosh. But it's so crazy because even just looking at him on there, like a lot of them look so similar.
They do. So it's really funny because I've had people, I've had friends say, oh, when you comment on that website and I see your comment, they're like, sometimes I think that's Jackson. And I'm like, oh no, that's Owen. That's his buddy in Philadelphia. So yeah, it is crazy how they all kind of have this look.
And I never really picked up on it until like I started doing this, until I started meeting like talking with more people, and then looking at the kids, I'm like, oh my God, they really do. Which is bizarre because I mean, Owen's 25% Filipino, so it's like, what in the world? Like they should not all look alike. It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
And like just the fact that Owen's so blonde and my husband's so tan and dark, and like it's just so funny to me how it all like works out.
Well, we always joke like we're not sure where that blonde hair came from because both my husband and I have dark hair. My husband did have more blondish hair as a baby, but yeah, it's so funny.
That's hilarious. So other than that, he's been good. Oh, the only other one thing I wanted to ask you is because he has hemihypertrophy of his one side, his organs on that side are also bigger?
Yep. So so his spleen is bigger. Part of they have said that what was it? It was like his spleen is larger than normal, but within range for kids with that diagnosis. And then his left kidney is longer. Okay. So yeah, and then they've definitely, I think, made comments about there's always like a notation about his liver in there, but nothing like no tumors or anything, just that it's bigger than it's always like bigger than normal, but within normal limits for the diagnosis.
For him, yeah. Do you notice that it's hard to keep him dry at night?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I was just telling somebody the other day, I was like, we have done size up diapers.
Yep.
We've done pull-ups. We've done multiple diapers.
Yep.
We it's just, I've stopped buying like one-piece pajamas because then the two pieces, when he soaks himself in the middle of the night, usually the shirt is saved.
Yeah.
So then we get up in the middle of the night and the bottoms get put in the laundry, he gets changed, and then he gets just put back down in just the t-shirt. But yes, he is constantly, especially overnight, is terrible.
Yeah, like we double over like good whatever they're called, Huggies, Good Nights or whatever. They're for kids that are like, potty training, that are like 4.
Yeah.
But I put like 2 on him and it never fails. Like 98% of the time I'm like, oh, I gotta wash the sheets, I gotta give him a bath. But he'll wake up like, no big deal, so happy, like I don't care. I'm like, oh my God. So part of me is like, when is this kid gonna potty train?
My husband and I were just talking about that the other day, because I'm like, he doesn't even, I mean, if he's wet or dirty, like, it's not like he wants to be changed.
No,
and I don't know if that's just because he's so used to being wet all the time. I mean, I just feel like, there are plenty of times where we change him and, I'm getting him dressed for school and my husband will say, oh, I just changed him. Like, he needs a new diaper again.
I know. So do you just kind of watch, like, I just found this like brand new company that sent me these like pee pants thing, and I put them on Owen tonight. I'm like, I am praying that these things work, because I like put multiple blankets on the bed, so that I'm like, okay, I only have to take the blankets off. But then sometimes it'll soak through that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's winning at everything.
Well, and we had so much trouble for a long time where he would get up in the middle of the night, anywhere between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m., and then would be up for a couple hours.
Oh, that's the worst.
And then would go back to sleep at like 4 o'clock. And for the longest time, I thought it's because he's so wet.
Right.
And, now I don't think that. I think it was just him getting,
him figuring it out.
Right, exactly. But at the time, I just was ready to pull my hair out, because I thought, I can't, like, I would go back to like the 2 hours at this point, because at least you knew at 2 hours you were going to wake up.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Well, that makes me feel better, because I know like a lot of people did say, oh yeah, I can't keep them dry. And then some people are like, no, we don't have that problem. I'm like, oh God, it's the worst.
It's crazy to me just how different, like, what things come up, and like just how one diagnosis looks so different in all the kids.
That's why I'm like, I never expected like to learn as much as I've been learning from everyone's story, because you just kind of assume, or at least I did, that like this is what Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome is, what I know it is with my son, and it's really not. Like, it's so like the spectrum is so vast, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I almost feel like there's so many parts of it that we don't even know yet still, because of how like I feel like there's all these different roads and they all lead to the same thing, but like we don't even know what half those roads are. Right.
I was so glad when Chris did his interview, Christopher, I had asked him about if he played any sports, because my husband and I are both big sports fans. And one of the things that I think it was the genetic counselor had talked to us about was the possibility that Jackson wouldn't be able to play contact sports because of his like larger organs.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
And so they told us that we wouldn't know until he got older, but that depending on like how quickly his organs grew, that they would recommend that he not play contact sports. So I was just, it was one more thing that I was like, why? It's not fair that here's one more thing that would be taken away. And so I was really glad to hear, you talked about that he played basketball and he ran track, and I was like, okay, good. Obviously if he doesn't want to, we won't make him, but I didn't want, exactly, the option to be taken away before he even had a chance to pursue it.
You know what's so cool? When I met Christopher at the Philadelphia conference, him and Owen bonded like they were like best buddies, which was so cool. But
that's
then
so cute.
and him and I were talking about the overheating thing with Owen, and he was like, you know what? I never thought of it until you brought it up that Owen had it. He was like, I remember being like 16, 17 years old, and I would be mowing the lawn. And he was like, out of nowhere, I'd be so angry. He was like, I just like would like I'd be pissed off for no reason, and then I finally figured it out. Like, I'm just so freaking hot. And he was like, I remember that. Like, I remember being like, what is my problem? Why am I so mad?
Yeah.
And he was like, it was just because I was so hot. I'm like, oh my God, this is so crazy to talk to like an adult.
Like, it's things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, who like, because part of me is like, all right, am I being a little crazy? Like, am I like picking up on something that's just like a normal thing? Or like, and he was like, no, I was literally like angry. And I was like, oh, all right, okay. Like, so it's a thing. Okay.
Well, one of the things that I don't know why this stuck with me, but when during Mary's interview, when she talked about how her tongue never really like sat in her mouth very well, it was always like farther down. And I never really thought about, you know, I find myself even now sometimes when I'm sitting like thinking about, what is my tongue doing right now?
Right.
And so it's made me so much more aware of when I'm like watching Jackson eat. And so even though he doesn't have the enlarged tongue, that I'm always sort of like looking for different, like when I hear something that one of the other parents talks about, I'll say, oh, you know, I'll make a point to try to watch out for that, because maybe it is something that is bothering him or he's dealing with, but it's not so apparent that I'm missing it, or that, you know, we're not connecting those dots. So, I mean, I agree. I feel like there's probably so much more to it that we just don't even know yet.
And I think part of the other, like at least with Owen, like he doesn't really complain. So, I mean, it's good, but at the same sense, I'm like, it's not really that good, because like I'll find out he has ear infections by accident. And I'm like, oh, dude, like you're not, and I look awful. The pediatrician's like, oh my God, he has a raging ear infection. I'm like, I didn't know. Like, I really didn't know.
So it's funny that you bring that up, because, well, not funny, but again, so Jackson has had 3 really bad ear infections, and he had 2 like right on the heels of each other. He had 3 in like a 6-month period, and we had 2 like the second one he got, we just finished the amoxicillin, and like 2 days later we were back at the doctor and he had another one. But he never exhibits any of the signs that they tell you to look for with an ear infection.
Yeah.
He never pulls on his ears. He never, so I never assume ear infection.
Yeah.
So I take him to the doctor, and I'm like, he, you know, runny nose and he doesn't feel good. And they check his ears and they're like, he has an ear infection. And I'm like,
yeah. You're like, I know what to look for an ear infection.
Okay.
I swear.
Right.
But he's not telling me that that's what he has.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So like, I almost feel like the one time he was emergently admitted to CHOP with pneumonia, and that was so scary, because like we're very like mindful of him and what like he exhibits and stuff like that, but like he didn't complain. And he still wasn't complaining at that point, but he was like almost like about like incoherent. He was like about to pass out in the bathtub, and I'm like, what in the world? Like, you need to go to the hospital. But he goes from like tolerating it and like sucking it up and not complaining to like being like, all right, Mom, I think right now you should take me to the hospital. I'm like, can you please give me like a medium?
Like, right. Because he's either like fine or sick. Yeah. There's no in between. I mean, I think all winter long we suffered with this ongoing cough. We could not get rid of it. And a runny nose. And I always told daycare, I'm like, you know, I gave him this and we're trying this, you know, and there were a couple times that they even called me. They're like, he doesn't have a fever, but he hasn't stopped coughing. I'm like, don't worry, I'll come get him. But yeah, I don't know if he just got used to it, because he was never overly cranky or anything. But man, that cough, it just would not go away.
And they kept on telling me like, he's fine. And I'm like, and like same thing. He has an older brother. And I was like, no, but like, he started with this in July. Like, this is not normal. Like, it's July. It's the summer. We're outside.
Yeah.
And I mean, since January, February-ish, he's been like fine, but now that it's like turning the corner and it's August, September, I'm like, oh, this year is going to be interesting, because last year with the upper respiratory stuff, I was like, this isn't normal. Like,
right.
I just know it's not normal. So even that, they still tell me like it's not connected to BWS, but I'm like, a lot of moms have said that like their babies struggle with respiratory stuff all the time.
Yep. Well, and it's so hard. It's hard for him to sleep. It makes me worried. But yeah, I just kept thinking like this constant cough and the runny nose just can't be normal.
Right.
You know, because if I had that, I'd be in the doctor every day, like, fix me.
Right. Help. Now, how are his, like, how did you approach his daycare with his whole diagnosis and stuff like that? Because I don't have to deal with that quite yet, but I will eventually, because right now Owen's not in any daycare, but I wonder, like, okay, how am I going to approach this where, like, I don't want him to be like coddled. I want him to be treated like a normal kid, but at the same time, you know, they need to be aware that this is what he has.
Yeah. So I think on one hand, we were really lucky because we were sort of going through it with them.
Okay.
You know, because as soon as we, you know, they said something, I'm like, yep, I'm going to mention it to the doctor. And then, so sort of every step of the way, we would let them know, like, hey, this is what the doctor said. Hey, this is what the doctor said.
Right.
And they were really helpful in the sense that, like, I could, because they were with him more during the day than I was, you know, I could ask them about the, you know, how he was doing with the running and walking and that kind of stuff. How did he do with eating, especially when we moved from, you know, just formula to solid foods and all that kind of stuff. And I really think that they were very, like, because they could see that it wasn't really slowing him down, that was really, really helpful. And I've just always been really upfront with them about, like, when he has his appointments, that he's probably going to be a little crankier, and that like he's got a bandage on his arm from the, you know, from the blood draw and all that kind of stuff. So they've been really, really great about that. They've been really, really wonderful with having that early intervention team come in and work with him there. The other thing, this isn't related to that, but it made me think, I remember somebody had mentioned one time BWS babies sometimes having like gut issues, and we just now got Jackson on vitamin D milk. So he, we had to be on the special formula for until he was a year old. And then he didn't really have any problems with other dairy, but he could not keep down regular cow's milk.
Wow.
And so we tried almond milk and soy milk, or we tried the almond milk, and somebody let me know that it still has soy in it. So for probably the last, 6 months or so, he actually was on oat milk because it did not have soy or dairy in it. So, certainly if there's any, kiddos out there struggling with milk specifically, we found that, and it was at Target, and it really was not, I think it was like $3.50 for a half gallon. Okay. So it wasn't ridiculous, but it really, really helped him. Like I said, he didn't have problems with anything else because he would eat cheese just fine. And soy is in everything, right? But he didn't have any issues, but just that cow milk, he could not keep it down.
Wow.
And so we got the oat milk, and he really liked it. And we just have started introducing the vitamin D milk, and it's staying down now. So
that's awesome.
I don't know, again, if that's something with sort of like their stomachs as they get older, they can tolerate that stuff more. Again, I don't know if that's related to his BWS. I don't know if it's related to the MSPI. But yeah, that was definitely something that we dealt with as well.
That's awesome. Well, hopefully we haven't had any issues with milk with Owen, but I know some people do. So hopefully, I've never even said oat milk.
Oat milk, yep.
I
And
never
I
even
don't even remember. I didn't either.
At
So
first, I'm like, is she
like
saying
another.
oat with the G? And I'm like, no, she's
Nope,
leaving the
oat.
G off.
So a mom's group that I belong to, she has like her daughter is allergic to like everything. And so she can drink oat milk. That's one of the things that, because it's like completely vegan, non-dairy, non-soy. So she suggested it, and I thought, okay, well, we'll give it give it a try. And so the other nice thing that now that he's on milk is he's had to continue to be on some formula just because the oat milk doesn't have as many nutrients,
right?
As cow milk does. So that's been nice that we can drop off the formula since he's tolerating the milk. But so yeah, if anybody's having struggles with that, I would definitely recommend trying it.
That's awesome. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, what if you could give a new mom that doesn't have a baby yet, since he's your first? What is your biggest advice? Because I definitely think getting a diagnosis like this when they're your first baby is harder than it being your second baby. And I can kind of say that because I have one ahead of him, and I think I'd be like,
right.
Holy freaking crap, if it was my first baby. You kind of like are a little bit more distracted when you have more kids. So I guess what would your advice be for someone? Because I'm sure there's people that have your situation.
Oh, absolutely. I just think being really vigilant about, because like, maybe your kid doesn't have BWS, but maybe they have something else. So that anything that seems, and it's so hard because like, we're so like, oh, celebrate our differences. And like, yeah, that's great. But sometimes medically, there's a reason for it.
Right, exactly.
So, any of those things, I would never tell a soon-to-be mom or a new mom, like, take them to every single doctor. But also, trust your gut. Like, if you're seeing something that just doesn't seem like it's normal, or we were really fortunate. Like, yeah, I noticed the foot thing, but it wasn't even so alarming to me that I had rushed him to the doctor. Right. So we were really fortunate that daycare had also noticed something, and it's because they see, they had a whole room full of babies. Right. And so even if you aren't going the daycare route, I'd really encourage you find like a mom's play group or something where you do have that option to have your little one interact with other kids. I mean, not only for them, but for you, especially as like a brand new mom. I mean, I'd been around like my nieces and stuff when they were born, but not to the same extent that you are as a parent, where you're seeing it every day. So like that would definitely be my biggest piece of advice, is just find like a group, or if it is daycare or something that just people who are used to being around babies, it gives you I don't want to say like a comparison, but it gives you sort of something to like see what other kids are doing, especially if they aren't, and that's true of a lot of things, if they aren't meeting milestones and that kind of stuff. If you if you never have any interaction with other kids around their age, you don't even know. It's like you don't know what you don't know. Right. You can't know what you don't know. Right. So,
no, that's really, and like, really good advice.
And I'm such a big proponent for, again, like just trusting your gut and being, just being really vigilant with the doctors and insurance. And if I would definitely, like I said, I work in insurance. So if anybody's ever struggling with anything, feel free to post it on the website, and I'd happily give you tips and tricks of how to hopefully get the right avenue. I can't obviously guarantee anything, but I think, I always tell my husband, like, thank goodness that sometimes when they're throwing out that jargon, at least I knew what they were talking about, so that I could sort of combat it or come back intelligently with an argument, because I knew what they were trying to say.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a big that's a big thing. Like a lot of people have said, yeah, you know, we're waiting because of insurance or this and that. And it just like breaks my heart for them because we haven't experienced that, thank God. But like, I can only imagine the angst and stress I would feel just knowing what he has and knowing how quickly something can grow in him. And then I have an insurance company telling me, oh, we're not going to pay for it and we're not going to cover it. I just can't imagine. Like, that's nice of you to offer your help in that area because I know a lot of people are like, I don't know what to do. So you're awesome. That's great. And I'm glad your stuff got covered eventually because that's the biggest thing. I mean, these kids.
And the other thing too that I would really encourage anybody, just off the top of my head, really encourage your doctors to be having that conversation with the insurance company too, because that I do think helped in a lot of ways, is that both our pediatrician's office and the geneticist's office, those nurses and their admins were very, very on top of having the conversations with them, making sure they were staying on top of the insurance as well.
That's good.
I know it's because they want to get paid, but also because like they have more of a connection with the patient than the insurance company does.
Right. And if an insurance company is hearing from a doctor that the test needs ordered, it's a little bit harder for them to be like, oh, no, we're not going to order it. Like, well, you have a physician.
Right, exactly.
Too. So that makes sense.
And one of the reasons I was so, vigilant is because I didn't want, thankfully the insurance company never brought this up, but I kept waiting for them to say something about like, oh, this is experimental treatment and that's why we won't cover it. So that's why I'm so like, make sure that the doctors are having those conversations, because like none of this stuff is experimental. It's like been proven to work, and that's the treatment that you have to follow. Because that's the number one question that I get from people that find out that Jackson has this, is like, oh, well, what's the treatment? It's like, well, there isn't really any treatment. It's just more monitoring in case something does happen.
It's like the watch and wait. That's what I always call it. I'm like, this is the watch and wait syndrome, which is the freaking worst sometimes, because you're just like, oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm so excited to finally like talk to you, and like I know there, but it's cool to like put, like, I see your pictures and stuff, but to put like a living face to you,
like a personality to the post. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's I'm excited to share your story everywhere, because I mean he doesn't have what everybody typically doesn't. Everybody thinks BWS is, when you Google all these things that pop up, it's like, no, some of them are very normal. I mean, I hate using that word, but very normal children that look like nothing is wrong with them at all. So I'm happy that
it's, now with like shorts weather, I feel like the leg difference is a lot more obvious with shorts, but like if he's wearing pants that fit and whatnot, you would never, it isn't something that you immediately sort of encounter. And that's definitely one of the things too, is I would tell somebody who, if your child does have this, or really any diagnosis, that it isn't a physical diagnosis, that when somebody sees your child, that it's not an immediate, oh, they have XYZ, or that they have something. Just being so much more, I find myself so much more tolerant and open-minded to the fact that, like, sometimes my husband and I feel like we're sort of silently struggling. And struggling is a strong word, but it's because he has something that potentially could be so exactly. And the ramifications of what he could have are so high, but it's not, it's not an obvious diagnosis. So just really, and that's something that we've really encouraged when we've talked to other people, like, hey, you could know somebody who has this, or something something similar, that it's just doesn't show physically. So that's definitely something that
and you're not the first
become much more understanding too.
You're not the first person to say that. Even like, I mean, Owen to me, like, you know, looks like a normal kid. Obviously his leg is like so much different, but we're getting to the point now where like adults haven't been as bad now that his tongue's been fixed, but children are like starting to point it out. So, and I just like, if they're nice about it, I'm just like, oh, he just sticks it out. Cause I'm like, I'm not going to get into the whole thing with like a little kid and they're being sweet. But, yeah, I feel like even people at work, like sometimes would be like, well, Owen's great. He's doing good. And I'm like, I know, but I just wish like you could understand just the stress of just like, okay, I'm good for a little bit. And then the scans are coming up and it's like, yes, he looks good. He looks great, but it's not what you can see. That's
exactly
the stressful part. It's like we're going crazy because of what we can't see.
Because so many times people would, I would make a comment or whatnot, and somebody would be like, "Oh, but he's doing so well, and like he's hitting all his milestones, and he's like excelling in so many areas too. Like, why are you worried about this then?" And it's like, yeah, I don't know, like he can go up and down the stairs sooner than like I don't care about that. Like what I care about is the things that I can't check on every single day. Like I can't see, you know, I don't have an ultrasound machine upstairs and I can't check that like everything is still just fine.
I know. You know how they have like the heartbeat monitors now on Amazon? Yeah. It's like, could we just get like an ultrasound machine and like a test on Amazon standby?
Yes.
Come and do one every day.
Exactly.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you came on, and I'm so glad that he was able to come on.
Thanks.
And like I was actually able to see him. He's so freaking cute. And I hope you guys, you know, I just wish you guys luck with everything, and it's cool to just
be in
touch with you guys. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to meet one day. I'm like really hoping to be able to make like travel plans and like to really just like kind of blow this stuff out of the water and educate people. So,
and we are planning on going to the Miami event next summer. So yeah, we are really, really excited about it.
Yay, that's exciting. That's awesome.
So yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. This was awesome. You were great. Take care.
Bye, everybody.